who are viewing virtual Temple Sinai. My name is Lynn Weinstein. I am co-president along with my partner, Betty Adams, and on behalf of our Board of Trustees, a great big welcome to all of you. It's really interesting, in the weeks that we've been open, we count a few more tushies in the chair every Friday night, and that's wonderful. Tonight's worship service will be led by Rabbi Aviva Bass and student cantor Dan Geigerman, accompanied by Dr. Dave McFarland on the keyboard. Before we start the service, may I please ask you to be sure that your electronics are silenced throughout the service. And I hope that the ushers provided you with the blue songbooks as you came in. If not, just raise your hand and an usher will provide you with the songbook. There'll be a couple of pieces throughout the worship service that are in that booklet. At the conclusion of our service, there'll be opportunity to have a little nush. How can we have Shabbat without a little nush? And the tables are in the back of the social hall, spread out for the care and safety of everyone here in our sanctuary. And I hope you folks at home enjoy a nush all through the service, if that's the style that you want to do. And you know what? Let's say it. Pajamas are okay when you're home. It's perfectly fine. We're family. And just sit back and relax, and please participate in the service.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
So welcome to all who are here in person and to all who are worshiping from a distance. We're all in community together, and it's wonderful to have you here. Let's start with a song.
I think so. Hine matzov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matzov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matzov, hine mahatov. Yadadai, yadadadadadadai. Hine matzov, hine mahatov. Yadadai, yadadadadadadai. Hine matzov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. 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 Hine matzov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matzov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matzov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
So we're ready to bring in Shabbat light and to make Kiddush afterward, and I'd like to invite the Wartels, first Helene to light the candles, and then Sydney to do us the honor of the Kiddush. Page 120 and 121. Oh, sure. Yes.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter this sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen.
Amen.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Amen.
Amen.
The heaven and the earth were finished in all their array. On the seventh day God finished the work that God had been doing, and God ceased on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on it God ceased from all the work of the creation that God had done. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotov v'ratzavonu v'shabbat kodsho v'yachava v'ratzon hinhi lanu. Zicharon l'ma'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila l'makarei kodesh zecher letziat mitzrayim ki vanu
V'hatanu kidashta
mikol
mikol ha'amim
v'shabbat
kodshecha b'achava uv'ratzon hinchaltanu
Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat.
Amen. L'chaim.
Last week.
Thank you, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Shabbat Shalom. We continue now on page 142 with the Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, Kadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zeidchem leShalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
And now let's turn back in our Siddur to page 138 and 139 for L'chadodi. And as is our custom, when we reach the final paragraph, we will rise and greet the Shabbat bride in the back of the room, hoping that she's going to come in one day and herald a messianic age of all peace. Page 138, L'chadodi.
L'chadodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nikabela. 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 Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad, ishmi'anu el hameyuchad, Adonai echad shemo echad l'shemo tiferet v'lichi la 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 lecha lecha dodi likrat kala v'nei Shabbat nekabela lecha lecha dodi likrat kala v'nei Shabbat nekabela לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי היא מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה זו מעשה במחשבה חילה לה 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 לך לך דודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה התעוררי כי באורך ומאורי אורי שיר דברי כבוד אדוני אלך נגלה לה 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 לך דודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני ים סגולה בואי חלה לה 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 לך דודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת קלה בני שבת נקבלה.
Now that we are standing, before we continue with the Baruch Hu, let's take a few moments and say hello and Shabbat Shalom to those around you, and maybe give a wave to the folks who are worshiping from afar as well. Shabbat Shalom.
From afar.
From afar. So for a change tonight, I thought we would utilize service number 2. We haven't done that in quite a while. So let's flip to page 264, and continue with the call to worship, the Baruch Hu.
Yai da dai 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 dai. Yai da dai 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 dai. Yai da dai 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 dai. Yai da dai 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 dai. Yai da dai 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 dai. Yai da dai 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 dai. Yai da dai 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 dai. Yai da dai 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 dai. Barechu het Adonai Hamevorach Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Hamevorach Leolam Vaed Hamevorach Hamevorach Leolam Vaed.
Please take a seat as we continue on page 265 with this interpretive translation of the Ma'ariv Aravim in song.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher בדברו מעריב ערבים, בחוכמה פותח שערים. God of creation, who makes the evening fall from light into darkness with the setting of the sun, you unfold the heavens with brilliant moon and stars and wrap our souls with peace. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv arabim mechokma poteach she'arim. Baruch atah Adonai Amariv Aravim.
We turn to page 266 and read together in the English. In each age we receive and transmit Torah. At each moment we are addressed by the world. In each age we are challenged by our ancient teaching. At each moment we stand face to face with truth. In each age we add our wisdom to that which has gone before. At each moment the knowing heart is filled with wonder. In each age the children of Torah become its builders and seek to set the world firm on a foundation of truth. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. We rise for the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod, Malchuto Leolam, Leolam Vaed. And thou shalt love
Page 2 in our
Adonai,
Shiron.
your God, with all your heart. You may be seated. With all your soul and with all your might, and all these words which I command you on this day shall be in your heart, shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and you shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be for frontlets between your eyes, and you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates, and upon your gates, that you may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
We continue on page 271 as we think of those places in our world which are feeling very dark at the moment and in need of God's sheltering presence. And I invite you, as Cantor Dan sings this version of the Hashkivenu prayer, to send your thoughts out to those communities, out to those people, or out to yourself if you are the one in need of this sheltering presence. The Hashkivenu is on page 271.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Vehamidenu Shomreinu Shomreinu lechaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Vehamidenu Shomreinu Shomreinu lechaim. Ufros aleinu Sukat shlomecha. Ufros aleinu Sukat shlomecha. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Vehamidenu Shomreinu Shomreinu lechaim. Ufros aleinu Sukat shlomecha. Ufros aleinu Sukat shlomecha. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom Vehamidenu Shomreinu Shomreinu lechaim.
We turn now to page 273, and we begin the tefillah together, and then we'll have a few moments of silent prayer. Oops, sorry, forgot this was still on. Of silent prayer and meditation. And when you are finished with your own silent prayers, please be seated. We rise now on page 273 for tefillah.
Adonai, Sefer שפתי תפתח, ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarai, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei Hakol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללו הסלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש. Shalom, shalom במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל אמן. עושה שלום שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. ועל כל ישראל amen.
A little bit later, we will be having a Torah service, and I will be reading from the Torah from this week's Parsha. But before we do, I wanted to give us some context. So I'm giving the drash before the Torah reading today to give you a little bit of insight. As a rabbi, I've met with people who are at the final stages of their lives, and they're in hospice care, and they're thinking upon the meaning of their lives and the highs and lows of their life's journeys. And you may be surprised at the number of those who are dying, as well as those who are mourning the death of someone after they are gone, who indicate that they're estranged from someone in their family, someone close to them. Some say they haven't spoken in many years. Others say they don't even know where the person is living. Still others say they cannot even remember why the rift occurred in the first place. They cannot recall a precipitating event. Perhaps some of you can relate to this. This is especially common with siblings, I've found, whose sibling rivalry as children sometimes extends all the way into adulthood. They may blame each other for a poor relationship with one of their parents, or it may be the mom always loved you best syndrome. Bereshit, or the book of Genesis of the Torah, gives many examples of this. And as we're wrapping up the reading of the book of Bereshit, next week is the final of the Parshiyot in the book of Bereshit, I thought we would take a review of what has occurred so far with siblings in the Torah in Genesis. So Genesis, Bereshit, starts with the worst example of them all, with the story of Cain and Abel. Cain, jealous of God's acceptance of Abel's sacrifice and the rejection of his own, commits fratricide, actually murdering his brother Abel. This is not only the first murder in the Torah, but the first death. And for this act, Cain is forced to wander the earth for the rest of his life with a sign on his forehead indicating that no one should kill him, but he should never be able to settle anywhere, always contemplating this horrific sin. Of course, it may be argued, as some of the ancient rabbis did, that although Cain was trying to hurt his brother by striking him, since he had never witnessed death, perhaps he didn't intend to end Abel's life. However, to us as readers, we are immediately struck by the power of sibling rivalry, this one motivated by desire not for love of a parent, but for acceptance by God. The next Torah story in which we see sibling rivalry is with Abraham's sons, Isaac and Ishmael. You may remember that when Sarah is unable to conceive, she tells Abraham to try with Hagar, her handmaiden. The result of this coupling is the birth of Ishmael, Abraham's son through Hagar. Later, when Sarah has her own child, Isaac, She is upset by Hagar and Ishmael's presence in her home. And even though Sarah set up this tension by asking Abraham to couple with Hagar in the first place, she is jealous of Abraham's attention toward Hagar and Ishmael, and also unsettled by the relationship between Abraham's two sons. Sarah asks Abraham to send Hagar and Ishmael away, and God tells Abraham to listen to Sarah and to do what she has said. Abraham sends them away, and the two brothers never see each other again. Isaac is, of course, one of the ancestors of our people, the Jewish people, and Ishmael becomes the father of the Muslim people, identified in the Quran as the one who was almost sacrificed by Abraham on the mountain instead of Isaac. They identify this as having been Ishmael. And of course, we know that this sibling rivalry has lasted until this very day in the region. Next, we have the story of Jacob and Esau, the twin sons of Isaac and Rebekah. The parents set up this unfair rivalry between them by each making clear their favorite. Not something to be done. I wouldn't recommend it. The Torah tells us that Jacob favors Esau, who hunts, because Jacob likes to eat meat. And Esau is the hunter, Jacob is the gatherer, he does not hunt. So then the Torah tells us that Rebekah's favorite is Jacob. Now the Torah doesn't specify why Rebekah's favorite is Jacob. And my inclination is that because Esau is being favored so much by her husband, she lavishes more attention on her other son, Jacob, who is not getting as much attention by her husband. That's what I believe, but you can make up your own hypothesis. But in any case, we recall what Rebekah and Jacob do to their father Isaac, tricking him into giving Jacob the greater blessing, usually reserved for the older son. And although they're twins, we know that Esau came out first. After this trickery, Rebekah sends Jacob away out of fear that Esau will kill him. Over 2 decades later, the twin brothers reunite, but it is an uneasy reunion. Although the Torah says that they embrace, there are dots written in the Torah scroll above the word for the embracing. And the commentaries, since it's always been there throughout, as long as we've had Sefer Torah, people have discussed, of course, why are these dots there, and commentaries have postulated that this indicates that this embrace of Jacob and Esau is insincere in some way. And one commentary even suggests that instead of kissing his brother on the cheek, that Esau bites him. So they sought to vilify Esau because, as you can imagine, Jacob didn't look like such a good guy, at least in the beginning of his life. So they tried to find ways of making Jacob look better, making Esau look worse, and so some of the commentaries say that he bit him. But in any case, we have this uneasy reunion, and they go their separate ways, Jacob and Esau, and they don't see each other again until they get together to bury their father Isaac. So now we come to the Joseph story and where we are now in the Torah. Jacob had 12 sons through his wives Rachel and Leah, and also his concubines, their handmaidens, Bilhah and Zilpah. Rachel has only 2 of these sons herself. She only births 2 of them, Joseph and then Benjamin, during whose birth she dies. Now we all know the story, I think, of the multicolored cloak given to Joseph by his father Jacob, popularized by the famous Andrew Lloyd Webber Broadway show, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, which is a nice show. It's even nicer if you contemplate that Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote this show when he was only 16 years old. So it's pretty amazing. But I won't break into song here, but just to recap the story, the brothers are insanely jealous of the attention that Joseph is receiving from their father Jacob, so much so that they contemplate murdering him. But instead, they throw him into a pit and then decide, instead of leaving him to die, that they should sell him as a slave because they see some passersby, some caravans, and they say, oh, let's not let him die in this pit. Let's take him out and sell him. And they make a little money in the process. So he's sold and taken as a slave to Egypt. Now, through many trials and circumstances, Joseph has a low point of false imprisonment and a high point, the high point, of being appointed as second in command in Egypt, just second to Pharaoh himself. And he's in charge of Pharaoh's storehouse of goods, of the Egyptian storehouse of goods to distribute during the famine. So meanwhile, there's a famine all over Egypt and the region, for which Joseph is prepared because of his interpretation of Pharaoh's dreams. He's prepared with his storehouse of food, over which Pharaoh has put him in charge. And Jacob sends down his remaining sons, except young Benjamin, who is his favorite now and who he coddles because he, of course, is his only remembrance of his beloved wife, Rachel. So he sends all of them down, except Benjamin, to procure food in Egypt. So Joseph comes face to face with his own brothers for the first time in years, and they do not recognize him. Joseph tests their character twice by planting a goblet in their possession and also by asking for Benjamin to be brought down to Egypt as well. And then we get to this week's portion, Vayigash. And in this portion, Joseph reveals himself to his brothers. Here's a translation from the Sepharia.org website of the Hebrew text about this reunion between Joseph and his brothers. The Torah describes it as follows. Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone withdraw from me." So there was no one else about when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. His sobs were so loud that the Egyptians could hear, and so the news reached Pharaoh's palace. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still well?" But his brothers could not answer him, so dumbfounded they were on account of him. Then Joseph said to his brothers, "Come forward to me." And when they came forward, he said, "I am your brother Joseph, he whom you sold into Egypt. Now don't be distressed or reproach yourselves because you sold me hither. It was to save life that God sent me ahead of you. It is now 2 years that there has been a famine in the land, and there are still 5 years to come in which there shall be no yield from tilling. God has sent me ahead of you to ensure your survival on earth and to save your lives in an extraordinary deliverance. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he has made me a father to Pharaoh, lord of all his household, and ruler over the whole land of Egypt. Now hurry back to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me lord of all Egypt. Come down to me without delay. You shall dwell in the region of Goshen, where you will be near to me, you and your children and your grandchildren, your flocks and your herds, all that is yours. And there I will provide for you. For there are yet 5 years of famine to come, that you and your household and all that is yours may not suffer.'" So this is my favorite passage in the Torah. My favorite verse is the one in which Joseph says, "Now do not be distressed or reproach yourselves because you sent me here. It was to save life that God sent me ahead of you." To me, there can be no greater example of forgiveness than this. I've heard stories from people of not being invited to a particular event or careless words being spoken by a loved one that causes the estrangement in their family. Not that I do not understand how painful these events can be, and there are certainly cases, such as in families in which abuse has occurred, in which estrangement is certainly necessary for self-preservation, either physically or emotionally. But in general, we can all take a lesson from Joseph. His brothers consider murdering him, and at first they leave him in a pit, which the Torah says contains no water. And then Judah tells the others to sell him into slavery rather than let him die. And he's taken into slavery, brought to a foreign land, away from his father and all that he knows, where he spends years of his life. And yet, after all of this, although he does put his brothers through these tests I spoke of, Joseph forgives his brothers for all that they did to him. How is Joseph able to forgive such horrific treatment by his brothers? Through his faith. Joseph understands that there is a greater story than his own at work. He sees that his position of power in Egypt enables life to continue, not only for his family, but for their future descendants. In other words, with more mature hindsight, Joseph is able to see a grander scheme at work than his brother's malicious deed in selling him into slavery. And it is this greater perspective that allows him to forgive his brothers truly for what they did to him years previously. He sees it no longer as their sin, but as part of God's plan to achieve greatness for all of them and ensure their survival. Sometimes, when we are in the midst of a time of difficulty in our lives, we cannot understand anything positive that can come of what is happening in our circumstances. And yet, like a pointillist painting, we cannot make out the picture until we step away from it with greater hindsight and perspective. On this Shabbat, I wish that all of us may find renewed faith so that when difficulties do arise in our lives, we know that there will be beauty and joy in our lives again. And may we find within ourselves the capacity to forgive others for slights against us and to reconcile with loved ones when it is appropriate. Shabbat Shalom. So now we continue with our Torah service, and you'll hear me, I will read this section of the Torah. So we begin the Torah service on page 362 in our Siddur, 362. And as the ark is open, we rise for the beginning of the Torah service, 362.
Ein kamocha v'Elohim Adonai ve'ein kema'asecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Av harachamim heitiva v'tzoncha et Zion. Tivnei chomot Yerushalayim, tivnei chomot Yerushalayim, ki lecha levad batachnu, melech elam v'nisa Adon olamim, ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, ki mitzion tetzeh Torah, udvar Adonai Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Gadol Shemo, Gadlu Adonai iti, Unerom ema Shemo yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagidula vehagivura vehatiferet vehanetzach vehahod. Ki chol bashamayim uvaretz, ki chol bashamayim uvaretz. Lecha Adonai hamlacha, le'amid na'aseh lechol lerosh.
I apologize, I did not look up the page number in the Plaut Chumash that we're going to be reading from, that I'm going to be reading from, but I will translate afterwards. It is Parshat Vayigash, and I'm beginning at the, in chapter 45, I believe, Genesis chapter 45. No, we're starting from, let's see. 282, okay. 4. Yes, it is verse 4. Sorry. It's chapter 45, verse 4. So if someone has a page number, please let us know. 282. Oh, it's 282. Okay. So, Ya'amdu, please stand up, anyone who wishes to do so, for this aliyah. And together we say the bracha. Baruch hu et Adonai hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai hamvarach leolam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomer Yosef elechav, Geshu na Eli, Vayigshu, I'm sorry, I lost it. Vayomer ani Yosef, Achichem, Asher mechartem oti, Mitzrayma, Ve'ata al ta'atzvu, Ve'al yichar be'enechem, Ki mechartem oti hena, Ki lemachyeh shalachani Elohim lifnechem, Ki ze shnatayim hara'av bekerev haaretz, ve'od chamesh shanim asher ein charish v'katzir, v'shalachani Elohim lifnechem lashum lachem she'arit ba'aretz, u'lachayot lachem lifleta gdola. Ve'ata lo atem shlachachtem oti hena ki ha'elohim vayashme'enu v'yasimeni la'av lefar'o ve'le'adon lechol beito ve'mashal b'chol eretz Mitzrayim. And this translation is, "Then Joseph said to his brothers, 'Come forward to me.' And when they came forward, he said, 'I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Now do not be distressed or reproach yourselves because you sold me here. It was to save life that God sent me ahead of you. It is now 2 years that there's been famine in the land, and there are still 5 years to come, in which there shall be no yield from tilling. God has sent me ahead of you to ensure your survival on earth and to save your lives in an extraordinary deliverance. So it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he has made me as a father to Pharaoh, lord of all his households, and ruler over all the whole land of Egypt.'" And now let's say the closing bracha. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen. Misha Beirach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'Imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah. May the Holy One who blessed all our ancestors bless all of us who have come up today in honor of God, in honor of Torah, in honor of Shabbat, and in honor of our commitment to our sacred community. May the Holy One of blessing grant all of us good, long, healthy lives filled with joy, peace, and love in our homes, and prosperity in all of our labors, along with all of our family and friends, and along with the entire house of Israel. And let us all say, Amen. Please take a seat. Before we lift and tie our Torah scroll tonight, it is our minhag, our custom here at Temple Sinai, to have a blessing of healing. And I do have a Mishaberach list of those we know of who are in need of such healing. Thank you. And I'm going to place this list on top of our Holy Torah scroll, and I will be reading the names as Cantor Dan leads you all in singing. But before we do, if you have a name or names of those you are thinking of who are in need of healing of body, mind, soul, or of all three, please say the names aloud now. So for all of those whom we have named, as well as all of those good people around the world who are in need of healing, we sing this healing, Mishaberach.
Mishaberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say,
Now we're ready to lift and tie our Torah scroll as I invite our Hagba Eric Adams to lift the Torah high in the air. We rise and we sing V'zot HaTorah.
וזאת התורה ששם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. וזאת התורה ששם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. Yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai yai dai dai dai, yai dai dai dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai. Eitz chaim hi ומחזיקים בה בתומיה מאושר דרכיה דרכי נועם וכל נתיבותיה שלום. השיבנו אדוני אליך ונשובה חדש חדש ימינו חדש ימינו
Please take a seat, and I now invite Betty Adams back up to the podium to deliver a few brief announcements.
Can everyone hear me? Ooh, I
There
can
we
hear me. I'm always surprised. Shabbat Shalom. I am Betty Adams, co-president of Temple Sinai, along with Lynn Weinstein, my constant companion. Tonight, first of all, I want to thank Rabbi Aviva, Cantor Dan, and Dr. David McFarland, our accompanist, for a wonderful service. And I'd also like to thank the following sponsors. Tonight's Erev Shabbat service is sponsored by Pam Nadler and Mark Sickles in memory of Pam's beloved mother, Carol Brown, Rosalind White in memory of Albert Dendo, Marie Elise and Eugene Sinal in honor of Marie Elise's birthday. Happy birthday, Marie Elise. Lori and Steve Tamber in honor of Lori's 76th birthday. Happy birthday, Lori. I'm sure you're watching. Joyce Ross in memory of Jack Miller. Best friends of Susan Christopoulos in honor of her special birthday. Arlette Hurt in honor of her husband Jim Hurt's 80th birthday. Arlette, you'll have to let me know if he was surprised. And the following donations to the community food pantries are sponsored by Belle Brody in memory of her beloved husband Donald Brody. Lori and Steve Tamber in honor of Lori's 76th birthday. Harriet Meyer in honor of her daughter Deborah's birthday. Our Saturday, December 11th Shabbat Torah study is sponsored by Rosalind White in memory of Albert Dendo, Marilyn and Stephen Carter in memory of Joseph Yankowitz, Lori and Steve Tamber in honor of Lori's 76th birthday, and me, Betty, and Eric Adams in honor of Jim Hurt's 80th birthday. And now some announcements. We have a lot going on. First of all, this past Wednesday night was our first bingo game in too long, like almost 2 years. Everybody come to Wednesday night bingo. It's fun, it's popular. Bring a friend. If you don't play bingo, just tell someone you know who does, because a lot of people play that we don't even realize it. Let's see what's going on. This Sunday, Brotherhood is having Mike Saunders, who was a trainer for the New York Knicks for 20 years. He knew a lot of famous sports people that I don't know, but maybe you do. And I understand he's a wonderful speaker. It's at 12:30. You can still sign up tonight. You can see Jay Sweet or Eric Adams to sign up for this Sunday at 12:30. Adult education the following Sunday, the December 19th, is Dr. Rose Feinberg. She's speaking on They Had Jewish Roots Too. She's always a good presenter. You can see, wait, is Jane Brown here? Yes, she is. You can sign up with Jane Brown tonight, or Estelle Morgenstein, thank you. And we are having an exciting concert on January 15th. I don't know about you, but I love music from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And if you do too, you need to come Saturday night, January 15th, to see the renditions right in our ballroom. 2 or 3 years ago, we sold the place out. It is fun. They sing a cappella. They sing some rock and roll. They're really good. And you should come see Judy Stern at the Oneg to buy tickets. She's right here. And we have something else going on. If you've heard of the Spanish River Concert Series, it is not here. It is at the Spanish River Church Auditorium, but we're selling tickets for it. And it's a fundraiser for Temple Sinai. You won't pay more for your tickets, but it will benefit Temple Sinai. You can see Sherry Friedman or Harvey Fields at our carnival table, as I call it, after services at the Oneg. Thank you very much. Shabbat Shalom. I hope I didn't forget anything. Thank you.
It's very exciting that we have so much happening at our temple. I also don't want to be remiss in mentioning that we are back having Shabbat morning services. And if you've never been to a Shabbat morning service here, please check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. It's a different feel to the Shabbat morning than it is for Friday night. It's a little less formal. You may enjoy it. So tomorrow morning, 10 a.m., right here, and please join us or join us online. It will be live streamed as well. And now we continue with the concluding prayers of our service, beginning with the Aleinu on page 586, and we rise as the ark is opened.
We are carrying the stories of the ones who came before. What stories will be told of us when we are here no more? We commit ourselves to action. It brings meaning to our days. Aleinu l'shabeach. It's time to live our praise. Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol. לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Please take a seat. It is hard to sing of oneness when the world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone, and nothing but memory can fill the emptiness their passing leaves behind. But memory can tell us only what we were in company with those we loved. It cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become. Yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and words, and what they did is part of what we have become. We do best homage to our dead when we live our lives more fully, even in the shadow of our loss. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world. In each one is the breath of the ultimate one. In affirming the one, we affirm the worth of each one, whose life now ended brought us closer to the source of life, and in whose unity no one is alone, and every life finds purpose. This week, we recall those yahrzeits, the anniversary of these people whose names are illuminated on the plaques surrounding the sanctuary. Emil Bieder, Lee Bloom, Joseph M. Cohen, Helen Jane Coleman, Albert Dendo, Rose Dubin, Beverly Lipman, Joseph Marks, George Orlansky, Lester L. Ostrov, Samuel Rankin, Ida Sarah Reich, Alice Samuel, Milton David Schwartz, Abe Silverman, Rose Turetsky, Mayor Vinnick, Reba Weinstein, Lillian G. Weiss, Morton Norman Williams, and Frida Yellen. Others recalled at this time: Donald Brody, Carol Brown, Miriam Brown, Sally Gerwitz Feingold, Leonard Gordon, Harry Kirschner, David Kligman, Jack Miller, Joan Oppenheim, Albert Sender, Alice Shapiro, Sylvia Weinstein, Ellen Bonnie Weiser, and Joseph Yankowitz. And we recall with sadness the more recent passing in the past 30 days, the Shloshim period since their burial. Fred Page, Mitchell Lubitz, Diane Roman, Pauline Penny Altus, Ruth Lewis, Elaine Cohen, and Elaine Holtzman Frazier. If you are thinking of someone whom I have not named, please raise your hand, and as I gesture around the room, please say the name aloud. Anyone here? So for all of those whom we have named, as well as all of those who were murdered in the Shoah, we rise in solidarity with mourners everywhere. As on page 598, we recite the Mourners Kaddish together. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah be'alma divarach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael ba'agala u'vizman kari v'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'olmei almaya. Yit barach v'yishtabach v'yit pa'ar v'yit romam v'yit naseh v'yit hadar v'yit aleh v'yit halal shemei dekudesha barichu le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata tushpechata v'nechamata da'amiran ba'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shalom marabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all who mourn among us. And let us all say, Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated as we conclude with Adon Olam.
Yes.
Page 625, I believe, is that correct? 625? 625.
Adon Olam, Hashem Malach, B'terem Kol, Yitzir Nivra, Le'ed Nasa, V'chefso Kol, Azai Melech, Shemo Nikra. ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה ותפארה. Adon Olam Hashem Malach B'terem Kol Zir Nivrach Le'ed Nasa V'chefso Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimlok Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hoveh Ve'hu Yiyeh V'tifara Adon Olam Hashem Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivrach Le'ed Nasa V'chefso Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei ככלות הכל, לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה, ותפארה, והוא היה והוא הווה, ותפארה, והוא היה והוא הווה, ותפארה, והוא היה והוא הווה, ותפארה.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.